Alright, in this video I'm going to show you how to do some calculations on the graphing calculator and also do a few things when you're doing graphs. Alright, so first of all, in section 4.3 you had to do, well actually it was the very last problem, you had to find out if a number was a zero or not, and in doing that you had to do some calculations with fractions. And so I'm going to show you a couple of those just to remind you of how you can use your graphing calculator to do that. And there's a couple of ways to do it depending on which calculator you have. So the first calculation I'm going to do is -3/2 minus 1/4. So I'm going to use parentheses around each fraction, and the negative button, remember, has the parenthesis around it. So -3 divide 2, that's -3/2. And we're going to subtract 1/4. So 1 divide 4. And when you hit enter, you get -1.75. Now that's -1 3/4, but normally we would simplify it as an improper fraction. If you hit math and just hit enter because it's on the fraction feature there, and you got to hit it twice, it'll simplify the fraction for you. Let's do one more calculation. We have to multiply -3 times 41/2. So let's see, -3 times 41 divide 2, 41/2. And when you hit enter, you get -61.5, which is -61.5. But again, if we want to write that as an improper fraction, which is what you'll be doing in your homework, it would be -123/2. Now, it turns out there's another way to do this if you have one of the newer calculators. I'm not sure if it's just the CE, but let me show you how to do that. It's kind of nice, a little bit easier. This calculator has some features that the previous ones don't. So you want to hit, let's go ahead and clear our screen, and we're going to hit the math menu, and we're going to arrow over to fraction and hit, and actually you can see right there's numerator over denominator. So -3/2 minus 1/4. I'm going to go ahead and hit enter here, and then you just put in the numbers. So -3/2. I could put that, oops, let me go down, or you could put the negative out in front of the fraction or in the numerator, it doesn't matter, minus 1/4, so again, math, and we'll go over to the fraction button and hit enter and put in 1/4. Notice I'm using the arrows to put this in. And let's hit enter, and notice that's a little bit nicer, but you may or may not have that feature. So let's go ahead and look at some graphs now. So in section 4.3 you also had to do, or no, let's see, this was section 4.4. Number 7, I'm going to go ahead and do that graph. So it's x cubed, so here's my x button, and we'll use the exponent button to the 3rd power. You got to arrow over, minus 8x squared. You can use the x squared button here, plus 17x minus 4. And so in this problem it says for each polynomial function, use the rational zeros theorem to determine the possible zeros, then find all the zeros. Now, let's see, what I wanted to do is show you how we find the first zero. So we said the possible zeros were 1, 2, 4, and then also the negatives of those numbers. And so once you put the graph in, you can go ahead and let's go ahead and do zoom, and we've got zoom decimal and zoom standard. Zoom square is another one you could try. It makes the graph look more the way it's supposed to look. See, I would encourage you to kind of play around with these different screens, but for zoom decimal and zoom standard are probably the most useful. Let's do zoom decimal, so option 4. And actually you can see there's a 0 here, or an x-intercept. Remember, zeros and x-intercepts pretty much are the same. So we actually have a 0, let's see, we're supposed to have one at 4, so I guess that's 4. Let's go ahead and do second table just to make sure. It doesn't quite look right. So we're looking for an x-intercept. Notice 4, 0, that is an x-intercept. So of course y needs to be 0 in order for it to be an x-intercept. And so when I did that example in the notes and in the video, I used 4, and that's how I got it. Let me go back to the y equals screen, or the graph screen. I see what it is. It looks like it actually goes through 4, but that's not the vertex, or that's not where the graph turns. So, but it does go through that point 4, 0. And so that's how I got the 0, 4. And then let's talk about one more problem, number 20 on section 3.5, where we were graphing rational functions. So let me go ahead and clear out y. So here, this was x squared minus 4x plus 3, so x squared minus 4x plus 3. And then divide x plus 1. Now, I actually put this in incorrectly because I wanted to show you something here. The way order of operations works, the calculator is going to want to divide 3 by x before it does any of these additions or subtractions, and that's not what we want. So when you put in rational expressions, if there's more than one term, 2 terms or more, you need to put parentheses around the expression. So I'm going to go ahead and arrow back and put them in, or you can start from scratch, but I'm going to just use second and the delete button for insert. Oops, that didn't work so well. Here we go, second, insert, and put in a parenthesis there. Let's go over to the 3 and actually insert here. So second, insert, and put a parenthesis in there. And we need to put one in here. You can see it's almost just easier to type the whole thing over again, but the key is to put in the rational function with the parentheses around the numerator and denominator if there's more than one term in either or both. All right, so now we had to find, you know, the thing I want to point out here is you should be able to do most of number 20 without the calculator. It's not till the very end that we find a few points. And so I actually found 4 points. Let me go ahead and do second table. And the ones I needed to draw the points that I needed in my graph were when x was 2, so we get negative 1/3. When x was negative 2, so I need to arrow up here. And we got negative 15. When x is negative 3, you get negative 12. And when x is negative 4, you get negative 11 point, about a negative 11.7.